What's going on, everybody? Hope you're having a good day. I just wanted to come and talk live about the New York Times and Washington Post taking turns going back and forth, spreading Russia fear, Russia propaganda, and this new age McCarthyism, Red Scare tactics that have been used in the 1990s to mislead people and, cover up other things. So I'm going to wait about 5 seconds until people come into the live stream, and then I'm going to talk about what's going on. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A couple weeks ago, information came out in the book Shattered that Hillary Clinton's campaign manager actually hatched the Russia idea. I keep saying this in the videos, but I just want to start off if anybody's new. They hatched the idea. They said, well, we lost the election. We're going to make up a story that Russia hacked the election, and they've literally been pushing it in different angles. First, they said that Russia, hacked the election and released all the emails, but we found out recently that it was most likely Seth who was murdered, a DNC staffer who was in communication with WikiLeaks, and the FBI has those emails that he had sent to WikiLeaks. It seems like he was the one who didn't hack the DNC. He worked there and he leaked them because he saw all of the dishonest stuff they were doing and criminal behavior they were doing, and he just couldn't take it anymore. So he leaked it to WikiLeaks. So first, their story was, Russia hacked the election, they leaked these emails. We're about to find out that's not true, so they're freaking out and just going into overdrive. And then they said that Russia hacked the Vermont utility grid. It was the biggest fake news story of the year. You can Google it. Russia hacks Vermont utility electrical grid. It's a fake story. The Washington Post put it out. Millions of people shared it, and then real journalists went through it, and they're like, wait, there's no sources. They said U.S. officials, allegedly this and that. It's the biggest collapse of any major news story of the year. So they keep trying to find a Russian scapegoat. They've tried everything, and the Washington Post and the New York Times are essentially propaganda outlets. They're in with the establishment. They're owned by Jeff Bezos and Carlos Slim, respectively. They're in with the Clintons, the Democratic Party, mafia, and basically they've led us to the Iraq War. They've been, they're pretty much war propaganda. They act good. They act like they're for social justice, this and that, but they continually just drive us in the direction of war. And this is no different. So their failed story about the Russian election hack is about to fall through. So they're not even talking about those emails anymore, because now we know that, the information is probably going to come out that Seth was the one who leaked them from the inside. It wasn't Russia. The Russia utility story was a fail. Literally, they're so desperate to push fake news that I believe yesterday the Washington Post published an article saying, Russia did this and the thing, and then that story kind of fell through. And then now New York Times picks up where that fallen story has come up, and they're like, well, he leaked information on Israel, and President Trump said, well, I'm trying to stop terrorism, and I told them about flight safety or something. It was something very minor. It's like these news organizations, New York Times and Washington Post, and Democrats, Republicans, all of old politicians who are all criminals probably, they don't want anybody to talk. They don't want Trump to talk to North Korea. They don't want Trump to talk to Russia. They don't want Trump to talk to Turkey, Israel, Iran, because Trump is trying to solve all these problems. You have to understand, Trump is the first president since probably JFK that hasn't been controlled. Maybe Jimmy Carter, I don't know. Maybe someone else, but he's not owned by the intelligence communities. He's not owned by these news establishments. So instead of being a PR team where with the past politicians, they don't tell you anything that they're doing, they just show them playing basketball and make them look cool. They're trying to expose Trump and just throw him under the bus because they're mad at him because he's trying to stitch everything together. He's trying to work with Russia to fight ISIS, and that's what he campaigned on. Hillary Clinton campaigned on, she told you, I'm going to shoot down Russian aircrafts in Syria. I'm going to just literally start World War III with Russia. That's what Hillary Clinton wanted. She wasn't, a feminist trying to help the women's movement and social justice. All these people are blinded by that. Like, oh my God, she's a woman. She's so cool. She wanted to start war. And that's why millions of people voted for Trump, because you have one person who's trying to start World War III and just shoot down Russian aircrafts and not even attempt to get along with them. And then you have a president in Trump who said, you know what? Call me crazy, but I'm going to try to work with Russia. And Trump has said many of times, I'm going to try to work with them. If I can't work with them, I'll be tough on them. But why wouldn't I try? And here's the thing. They don't want people to get along. There's reports that came out recently that Trump is willing to talk to Iran. You know, everybody was afraid that he was going to go to war with Iran, as was I, because he was talking really tough on Iran. He's talking about possibly stitching relations with them. He could stitch relations with everybody. He's a great negotiator. He's an honest person, and he's not past America of these sellout puppet politicians who are just puppets for the military-industrial complex. Yes, Trump has been dropping a lot of bombs. Yes, I don't agree with certain things. Yes, he increased the military budget, but I truly believe that he has the chance to just go with one final swoop. You know, unfortunately, I would wish that it could happen without any sort of military, but, you know, if done correctly, we could possibly end war forever. And it's no surprise that the New York Times and the Washington Post keep pushing this Russia propaganda scare, because Trump wants to work with Russia to stop ISIS. He said, I'm trying to get them to crack down on ISIS more. The New York Times and the Washington Post, they don't tell you that there's been multiple reports about Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and even Google helping Al-Qaeda, helping ISIS, funding them, giving them weapons. You could Google it. ISIS drives U.S. cars. They're driving U.S. cars. They're driving all of these United States cars with license plates, with people's businesses on the side. Where are they getting these cars from? Where are they getting their weapons from? Where are they getting the money from? The United States. They've been getting funded by the United States. They control all the media, so they got New York Times, Washington Post, MSNBC, and they all circle jerk each other. Like now it's like, well, New York Times says it, and now Washington Post, and they're like, well, MSNBC's confirmed that. The U.S. officials might have, like, all of this Russian news is just completely fake, and it's obvious because what type of year-long investigation doesn't have any concrete evidence? They can investigate anything, literally anything. I'm surprised that they haven't found more, because, I mean, they could investigate me on Russia, and I have a phone call to Russia, like talking to a girl or something. They'd be like, oh my God, he's talking to her. Like, it's pathetic that they spent this much time, but where was I? I totally forgot what I was going to talk about. Can someone remind me in the comment section? Well, what was I talking about before I went on that little tangent real quick? Can someone remind me in the comments? I need a comment. Let me know where I was at. Oh yeah, about the terrorism stuff. Well, okay, so they're all getting their weapons and supplies and everything from the United States. And you have outlets like MSNBC, New York Times, and Washington Post. They're acting as PR teams, so they're not telling you. They've created these names, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, that Americans are afraid of. They're like, okay, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, like we're fighting them. But meanwhile, we don't know the true story of what's going on. We haven't known for the past 10 years. And we've actually been funding them. There's been reports 15 years ago that bin Laden was actually a CIA. He worked with the CIA and was on the payroll 20 years ago. And that was considered a conspiracy theory. Everybody thought that was lunacy 10 years ago. And now we're all finding out that it's probably true. It's not that crazy, because that's what was happening. And that's really the root of this. All of this stuff is that I truly believe, and I mean, feel free to do your own research. Like I said, this is not a quote. This is not agree with what I say. This is not a conspiracy either. All this information is available. Like, I'm not making this up. I'm not speculating. It's out there in public. It's just they prey on people for being too dumb to see it. And that's what's going on. So of course they're going overboard with this Russia stuff, because they're freaking out. The FBI director's canceled. Now we might have an FBI director who investigates the DNC lawsuits, you know, all of the corruption, and that, you know, it's like a big, you know, house of cards per se that looks like it's about to fall. So now that their actual house of cards is falling, you have them trying to just create this whole straw man of a situation like Russia. There's still more connections that Hillary Clinton has done outside of the work she was supposed to be doing to Russia than anything they found of Trump. Every time he talks to somebody, oh, don't talk to Kim Jong-un, don't talk to them, don't talk to this. It's because everybody knows, and trust me, Vladimir Putin knows. He's said it multiple times. He knows the United States is lying about ISIS. People in Syria know the United States is lying about ISIS. Everybody knows except for Americans, because Americans have been indoctrined by fake news media. And they think these credible sources like the Washington Post, democracy dies in darkness, like they're acting like they're the heroes, they're going to save the day. They're a giant PR team for past politicians. They don't want you to research and find out who was funding ISIS. They don't want you to research and find out who was funding Al-Qaeda. They don't want you to research and find out that Google works with Hillary Clinton, Google is working with Al-Qaeda, because they say rebels. They just make titles. That's ISIS, that's Al-Qaeda, that's rebels. Meanwhile, the problem got bigger, didn't it? It was 8 years, and when I was young, 2011 through 2007, ISIS didn't even exist. It was Al-Qaeda. We're fighting Al-Qaeda. We're fighting Al-Qaeda. All of a sudden, ISIS gets created, the Islamic State. What is ISIS? And then all of a sudden, Obama's playing basketball and stuff, and that's cool. He should get exercise. I'm not knocking that. But I'm not paying attention. Nobody's paying attention. And ISIS is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And we can't figure out why, because we have the biggest military budget in the world. No one has a bigger military budget than us. And we can trace everybody's phones. It's like we have the technology to trace every phone. We know we have GPS. We know where everybody is at every single time. Yet we can't stop a terrorist organization that doesn't even have an air force. Isn't something fishy there to people, or no? Or are people that dumb nowadays to say, well, yeah, but Russia, I think the New York Times said that U.S. officials said that possibly the Washington Post said, and it's been confirmed by MSNBC. Rosie O'Donnell said it, Louise Mensch said it, Rachel Maddow said it, and they got U.S. officials, intelligence communities that they allegedly, he talked to Russian, he said something about Israel. He said something about Israel to a Russian foreign minister, and that's not okay. There's literally audio and video. You can also YouTube and Google this, of Barack Obama whispering to a Russian diplomat after his meeting. He thought the cameras and the mics were off, and he leans over and he says, "Hey," he's like, "when I'm out of office, I'll be a lot more flexible." And he's like, "Pass," and then the guy's like, "All right, I'll pass that on to Vladimir." That's on video. Could you imagine if Donald Trump did that? He whispered to the guy like, "Hey, when no one's looking, I could do a little bit more." People would lose their minds. And this is out there. This is not a conspiracy. It's on YouTube. Google it. Obama whispers to Russian diplomat. But no one cared about that. No one noticed. It's honestly it's laughable. It's funny how stupid people are. And then these people are like, well, I can't believe they don't see all the Russia connections. It's a giant world. Everyone's connected. Everybody talks. Everybody's got connections somewhere. And nobody has done more stuff than the past politicians. But they don't want you to know that. They want there to be scapegoats. North Korea, Russia, they create these straw men. If you give Donald Trump 3 years and instead of lying about everything, like all of this Russian news, imagine all of the kids they could have saved. Imagine all of the lives they could have saved. Imagine all of the things they could have held Donald Trump accountable to that he's doing wrong if they just told the truth and stopped with this Russia stuff. But they don't want to help people. Give Donald Trump a few years. He could probably mend a lot of the world, because a lot of the problems in the world are because United States does a bunch of messed up stuff and nobody in America, none of the citizens know what they're doing. So we think we're this great, amazing country because in a lot of ways we absolutely are. It's a beautiful place in a lot of aspects, but we're blinded to what we're doing overseas. So our news sources are pointing the finger at these people. Hey, it's Al-Qaeda, it's ISIS, we got to go fight them. Meanwhile, we're funding them. We're giving them money and weapons, and we're making up different names for them, and nobody knows. This is why a lot of the problem exists in North Korea. Yes, he's a lunatic in some aspects, but he said multiple times, I just want to talk to Obama. And Obama wouldn't even talk to the man. Trump says, I want to talk to Kim Jong-un. I bet you if I could talk to him, we could figure out how to not go to war. And what does CNN do? They post an article that says, why we think it's a bad idea for Trump to talk to Kim Jong-un. They don't want anybody but their own puppets who want war. They don't want them to talk. They don't want them to talk to Turkey. They don't want them to talk to Israel. Now they have the audacity of pretending Like Israel doesn't like Trump. They're trying to say, oh, Trump is messing up our biggest ally with Israel. Israel loves Trump. The Jewish community loves Trump. The Jewish press, one of Israel's biggest news organizations, they were pro-Trump before anybody was. They wrote a bunch of articles why Trump was better than Hillary Clinton. Israel has no problem. Israel's president has said multiple times what Obama did at the end of his presidency when he gave a bunch of money to Palestine on the last day of his presidency. Google that too. If not the last day, the last week. Obama gives money. He sold a bunch of weapons to Israel and then gave money to Palestine real quick right at the end of his presidency. Israel said he showed his true colors. Israel doesn't like Obama. They don't like Hillary. Israel likes Donald Trump. And our stupid fake news media and a bunch of people on social media have the audacity today to create a story that says, man, Trump's ruining our ties with Israel. Man, they're trying to get Israel to turn on Trump. They're so pathetic. It's like no one believes you. Sit in the corner and talk fake news and fake reality to your little fake friends and little fake celebrities because you're the only one who believes it. You're not going to convince Israel to not like Donald Trump because Israel is Israel. They're not a dumb American. They're not a brainwashed, manipulated American by the media. And I'm not saying that Donald Trump can solve all the world's problems. There's the potential that he can't, or he could possibly make it worse. I'm not ruling these things out, but give him a chance. They don't want to give him a chance. They just want to make this fake Russian narrative, and it's insane. It's absolute insanity. And they're covering up the DNC lawsuits, which are taking place, which even Bernie Sanders won't talk about. Bernie Sanders every day, Trump, Russia, 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 Russia. Why? Bernie Sanders, are you afraid that your criminal politician friends are going to go to jail? How come you won't talk about your wife being investigated by the FBI, Bernie Sanders? Is that why you're so afraid of James Comey being fired? Now you have a real FBI director who might hold your wife accountable instead of all of your supporters who think you can't do no harm, taking $180 million from your supporters with 3 houses, pushing socialism, and then saying voter fraud doesn't exist and Russia hacked the election. Meanwhile, you won't say a word. You won't say one word about the DNC lawsuits. These are your supporters, Bernie Sanders. Seth Rich, dead. Sean Lucas, dead. Your supporters, dead. And you're a coward because you can't even say anything about it. You've posted Russia stuff 100 times and you haven't once posted anything about the Democratic National Committee and the lawsuit going on, Bernie Sanders. You're a coward. I'm embarrassed to ever have supported you. And what about Seth Rich? And I want to say something about Seth Rich real quick. Something very interesting I saw is his family, the family spokesperson of Seth Rich, is actually upset about what happened. They're upset that people are talking about this. The family spokesperson for Seth Rich is saying, you know, I don't care what the investigation says. Even if it says that all his leaks came from WikiLeaks, you know, it's still a conspiracy. Isn't that weird? Seth Rich's family is saying, even if we find out that he sent all these emails to WikiLeaks, I don't want an investigation. I don't want this being pushed to the news. You know, you don't disrespect his death. Did his family get threatened? Possibly. Or are they just, you know, maybe very old school and just don't want any attention? I'm not sure because it's very strange. They're like, even if all the evidence points towards my son being assassinated, don't say my son got assassinated. It sounds like possibly they got threatened, or maybe they're just old-fashioned and they don't want people to know. But I would think that as a family, you know, you'd want justice to come for your son because clearly Russia didn't hack that part of the election. He leaked the emails from inside because he was just disgusted by all the corruption. And Sean Lucas, who was the processor of the DNC lawsuits, he processed it, he marched and took a camera to like one of the Democratic National Convention Centers or whatever. He filed the lawsuit, bragged about it on a camera, and he died a month later. This is all confirmed. He's dead. He did that, and now he's dead. And Bernie Sanders won't talk about it. Bernie Sanders won't talk about Seth Rich. Bernie Sanders won't talk about anything outside of what Democratic politicians talk about. Is it because his wife's being investigated? Is it because he sold his soul Is he threatened? I don't know the truth. But I know a coward and a liar when I see one. And there's a lot of liars out here, and it's unfortunate that these news organizations are run by complete frauds, and they just keep pushing this Russia, Russia, Russia. And I don't get how people don't get it anymore. It's like every little thing Trump does, they're trying to bury him. And it's honestly, in a weird way, it's made me have more respect for him, because with all of the prying and the investigation, the resources they have, the stuff they found on him, the stuff they found on Mike Flynn, they're so minuscule. I'm impressed. Like, I would think if the FBI spent a year long, and Democrats, Republicans, the establishment spent a year long investigating any human being, any citizen of the United States for anything, they would find much worse stuff, because everybody's a human being and everyone has flaws, and maybe text messages they don't want people to read, and pictures they don't want people to see, and arguments and fights with loved ones that they don't want people to see, whatever. And they're investigating Trump, and all of the news organizations are against him, and they still can't find anything. I'm impressed. I'm like, I can't believe he doesn't have more ties to Russia. How does he not have more ties? Like, even business, it's like they've been investigating for a year, and they're like, well, this story's a lie. We did the Russian hack story, that was a lie. We did the utility grid story, that was a lie. How do people not get it? It's like, that's the conspiracy theory. Meanwhile, they call everything else a conspiracy theory that has facts. Like, don't investigate that. We're going to investigate something that doesn't exist for a whole year, but we're not going to investigate the murder of this person. You have FBI director or FX police detective Rod Wheeler saying that the police told him face to face, they said, we're not allowed to investigate this Seth Rich situation. We've been told to back down and don't ask any more questions. Something's fishy is going on, and I wish people would pay attention to that side of the story. And I'm paying attention to the Russia stuff. Don't think I'm not. Don't think I'm blinding it out. But every single story is New York Times and Washington Post, who have been caught repeatedly lying, and they just keep going back and forth, like lie, 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 speculation, U.S. official, allegedly, according to a U.S. official that's anonymous, because they can't put a face on the person because the person doesn't exist. They're making it all up. And people hate Donald Trump so much that they're willing to follow this fake conspiracy. And, it's pushed by news organizations that people think are real, but how long is this going to go on? I made videos joking about this in September, October, November, December, January, different story. February, different story. March, different story. April, different story. Oh, Trump talked to Russia? Oh, this is going to be good. Of course, he talked to, a diplomat or somebody from Russia. So now we're going to make up a story about Israel. Even though Israel likes Trump far better than they like other U.S. politicians, because Trump is being more honest. The media lies to us, and then you have politicians like Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. They're politically correct. They say all the right things to your face and then go do all the wrong things overseas. So everybody overseas is mad at us, but all of our citizens are just happy. Now I could be a transgender, lesbian. I can do this and that, and that's fine. I'm not knocking that. Much love to any transsexual and lesbian and gay people. I'm not here. Much love. I think you deserve freedom and whatnot, but that's how they shield us. It's like they throw us little crumbs, like, you can do this, you can do that now, and we're like, yay. Meanwhile, they're overseas funding terrorists, and no one cares. And we have a president who's being more honest with other countries. Russia likes him more. Iran probably will like him more, but they probably like him less, considering that Obama just gave them $1 billion in cash. Iran, one of the worst deals ever, as Trump says, and as also other people are saying. There's, of course, no investigation into that, but the whole Iran stuff, Obama gave money, and they found out more reports about that the last couple of weeks. But North Korea probably would like Trump better if they had a conversation. Israel likes him better. Germany doesn't like him. Britain doesn't like him because they're run by neoliberals. France doesn't like him because it's run by Macron, who is, a puppet of the banks. Here's how you know somebody's fake. If New York Times, Washington Post, or any of these news organizations, they say they're a centrist, they call him, hey, Macron, he's a centrist. Merkel, she's a centrist. Right in the middle, not too left, not too right, the perfect, honest person. A centrist. Give me a break. They're total shills. And it's funny to me. I don't even want to laugh because I don't want them to come after me. They seem to not like anybody who disagrees with them. You know, Martin Luther King was like, hey, I think African Americans deserve rights. And the FBI wrote him a suicide letter. Hey, oh, you think that, Martin Luther King? Why don't you kill yourself? Or we'll do it for you. Socrates, Jesus. They don't like people who tell the truth. But I'm not playing along. I'm protected by rare energy, so I'm not really worried about it. But how many times are the Washington Post and the New York Times going to lie? I don't know. How many people are going to share it? Like, when is this going to fall through? Possibly soon, because this Seth Rich stuff is most likely going to be too big to cover. But that's why they're freaking out. A new FBI director, the FBI has all of these emails. You might find a prosecution. You might find an FBI director who's not afraid to be honest, because past ones were little puppets. They were like, oh, yeah, you want to do that? Good luck surviving. Oh, you want to prosecute me? Well, you might accidentally die of a suicide. Oh, you want to do that? You want to go against us? Well, you might get robbed. Except you're going to get robbed like Seth Rich. You're going to get shot from behind, and no one's going to take anything from you, because is that a robbery or an assassination? I'm not sure. But I'm sure this information is going to come out. So thank you guys for joining me. Have a good day.